All right, on this episode of Bowks Talking Bouts, very excited to be talking to an individual who's one of the most well-regarded analysts in the world of combat sports overall. Great work in the gloved boxing space, but also in the world of bare knuckle through her analyst and commentary work with BYB Extreme. Happy to have Claudia Trejos on the show today to cover quite a few subjects. How are you doing, Claudia?
Doing very well. Thank you for having me. And after that intro, I you just set the bar really high. So I better be on point.
I imagine you will be. I think BYB is really setting the bar high, just the time of this recording being in such close proximity to Barrie Jones taking on Gregoris Cisneros and the second foray into the Wales market. Just what an incredible fight that is that we're so close to now.
Especially because there's a lot on at stake. Let's start with Gregoris Cisneros, who's he we had the opportunity to speak to him during your interview with him, and I'm pretty sure you sensed the level of pride, the level of the je ne sais quoi that comes behind the skills and the fight plans and strategy. It's that grit. When he says, I crossed all these countries, I left my family. He made a home in Chile. Then he lived in Ecuador where he had the opportunity to first fight, and then he had the opportunity to represent Venezuela and he walked away from that to look for a better future. So when we're looking just at that side of the story, that's ginormous. That's a great opportunity for a second, let's call it breath, a second chance, not only for his boxing career, his combat sports career, but his life in general. The one thing that he omitted is the fact that he lost both parents, and now he's in charge of his niece and nephew. So there's a lot at stake, which and all those factors go beyond anything that could happen in the mighty Trigon. And on the other side, we have a veteran. We have somebody that's been around for a long time, and we know the type of skills and experience a fighter of that caliber can bring to the table. So he understands not only is this my opportunity to shine like a star, but this is the opportunity for him to write his own chapter in the history books of bare knuckle.
Yeah, it's truly such an incredible fight, and I feel like I have a lot of BYB subjects I want to, touch upon, but you're so involved in combat sports. I feel like I have so many things I can talk about because I saw you were present for the Usyk versus Fury rematch and
Mhm.
did some great work there. I guess just curious to get your thoughts on, such a consequential fight, being that Usyk came out of that as the ESPN number one pound for pound fighter and everything like that.
Well, I'm gonna just state perhaps the obvious. Um, I have yet to see so many intricate factors into one fighter. I mean, the fact that he's representing Ukraine and he stands for something that goes beyond boxing in general, but he's very proud of his heritage, his religion, as a father, as a husband, as a friend, as a brother. He literally takes every single responsibility, every single role that he brings in one humanity very seriously. And that trickles down into his work ethic and the fact that he really prepares with a level of awareness. And I kid you not, you can speak to this man about pretty much everything. Emotional stuff, spiritual stuff, political stuff, boxing, economy. He's a very well-rounded person. And with that seriousness and dedication that he puts into his personal life, he takes on all those assets into boxing. And let's talk about Tyson Fury, perhaps one of the most gregarious, biggest personalities that we've had in a long time. And actually, I'm going to say and venture out, single-handedly gave breath to a division that was dull for so long. And all of a sudden, we have this mega personality that can actually fight and move and nimble and dance and sing. And he uses all of it to make sure that boxing is in the forefront. So I was privileged to see Tyson Fury in many fights, and especially Deontay Wilder. But then we fast forward right before he said that he was going to retire. He announced his retirement just a couple of days ago. Um, the way he took on this fight and the way he prepared himself and the way Sugar Hill is an extraordinary trainer, and I know they worked at length in terms of strength and conditioning strategy, fight plan. And to think that he fell short the second time, third time, I mean, we all understand there's always somebody that's going to have a better day, but this was the opportunity. We had the opportunity to see there's somebody who is really dominant in the heavyweights, and he's a small heavyweight.
Yeah, and I guess just to that point, like I'm curious to get your thoughts on what could potentially, shake out next. Like I know you were talking about Fury announcing that retirement, but there are some rumblings that maybe they finally get that Anthony Joshua fight happening. And then with Usyk, there are also some rumblings that the winner of that Daniel Dubois versus Joseph Parker fight will take him on next. Like, what are your thoughts on those two scenarios I kind of touched on there?
Again, let's go back to a statement I said a little bit ago. When we have somebody like Tyson just bringing back the heavyweight division and the outstanding opponents that he faced, and the fact that, we're talking about heavyweights again. And I lived the driest era of heavyweights. So all in all, we're talking about very exciting fights. As a matter of fact, I had a chance to speak to Dubois. Daniel is just a delight to speak to, very eloquent, very soft-spoken, surprisingly. Let's not put Francis Ngannou out of the picture, because we know what he can do in the heavyweight division in boxing, for God's sakes. And the fact that we have Joseph Parker still around, and we haven't pushed Deontay Wilder out completely. He's still part of that formula. It's another moving part. I mean, can we just acknowledge the fact that we're talking about more than one person being able to, call the public's attention and be able to have a pay-per-view, and people are willing to fly all the way to Saudi Arabia to watch these fights. And on the note of having maybe the Anthony Joshua against Tyson Fury, His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh, I wouldn't put that past him. I know his desire is to bring the glory back to the sport of boxing and the sweet science. I know we have a solid fan base, but with this new injection of energy, enthusiasm, and willing to make things happen and willing to have the best face the best, is bringing a completely different, I'm not going to say group, but yes, we have the young ones that perhaps didn't get a chance to see the Tysons and the Evander Holyfields going like, oh my God, we're going to see this guy. Because let's be clear, there's money behind it. Therefore, there's promotion behind it. There's marketing behind it. And all that fuels a very well-oiled machine that is boxing now.
And I guess even tying it into a bare knuckle context, because you said it very well, we have like multiple figures we're now able to talk about enthusiastically. But it seems like I guess, awareness of bare knuckle has been really getting out there amongst like even some of these fighters we've mentioned. I feel like I saw a report at one point that Usyk was intrigued by bare knuckle, and Anthony Joshua's, I guess, favorite sport behind gloved boxing is bare knuckle. So just cool to see that, I guess, like awareness of the sport continue to increase as the years go on and all that.
It's amazing to see the growth in demographics. We used to have like guys that were friends of the fighters, and they would watch, and we had like maybe 30, 40 people watching. There were friends and family, typical friends and family special. And now all of a sudden we have filled arenas. And when we go to Europe, and let's be honest, England loves a good brawl. So what better combination than to have competitive fights with high quality fighters giving us the best of the best without the gloves? I mean, it's a dream come true for somebody like me. And then we have the best fans. The English fans, you and I know, they travel everywhere to support their fighters. And it's amazing to see that kind of energy that just engulfs the whole environment. And it really, as a commentator, it just feeds you a little bit. And there's another extra skip to your step. There's that oomph because once you hear, Sweet Caroline, and I'm getting goosebumps when you hear the fans chanting the fighter's name. I mean, nothing like a fight in O2 Arena, Manchester. We've seen it. It's amazing. And now that's trickling to the US with the recognition of the heritage, the history of what the US has done for the sport itself. And the fact that, BYB has done a great job at formatting it, making it a structured environment, not only for the sport itself, for the fighters, for the whole environment, for the industry. I think that's giving, I hate to say that it didn't have credibility, but it was looked upon as being, yeah, those were the dirty kids from the playground. Remember, there's always that dirty kid in the playground that nobody really wants to play with, but he's had a whole lot of fun. That's what we used to be. Now we're still down and dirty, but now we're official and we got lots of credibility and we have lots of talent.
And to the point of the UK market, I mean, we touched on Jones versus Cisneros being that we're immersed in fight week, but also the Wolverhampton fight coming up at BYB 38 with LT Nelson and James
Mhm.
Kennelly running it back. And I mean, to the point of tradition, I mean, that Police Gazette diamond belt being in the mix, just a really exciting time for sure.
Oh my God, let's start with that. The Police Gazette, the Diamond Belt, is the oldest belt in the history of combat sports. So let's not forget what that means. And if anybody that's watching right now has not had a chance to go see the Hall of Fame of bare knuckle, I exhort you. The town is very quaint, very small. People are the kindest, but the history, when we're talking about, how it all started back in the day when boxing was illegal, when it was taking place out in the boonies, in the middle of forest, and it would take days. I mean, this is really how it all started. Especially now, I take it to heart and maybe my passion comes through because when we're discussing the greatness of combat sports across the board, and then there's another entity saying we're going to take boxing out of the Olympics. And it's the oldest organized sport in the history of sports. It's heartbreaking. So if anybody has the same love and passion, I exhort them to take, yes, it's a trek, yes, but um, Scott Burt has done such a great job, and there's so much passion in his day-to-day routine, even just putting the medals together and what it means to a sport to be able to say, well, I won, I don't know, the title back in 20, I don't know, 18, wherever. You can go to the book and there it is. It's not like it's a box rec, but handwritten back in the day, and you get your plaque and you get that extra recognition. I mean, it's a lot of work, but it's all worth it.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely comes across as a true labor of love for sure. And I think that reflects in many aspects of BYB. Like I saw you'd posted an Instagram photo a few weeks ago describing things as being a family matter. And it was like all the key figures at BYB and everything like that. So it seems like there's that real like familial kind of tie and that sort of, I guess, passion and dedication to the craft, regardless of what everyone's role is in it.
And I guess that happens when, first of all, there's a good captain as a leader, taking the ship, and we're all aware of what the end goal is. We're not guessing. This is not a guessing game. And this is not, okay, so we're just going to show up and everything is going to be done. We understand that we have to wear many hats. It's funny that you mentioned color commentator, play-by-play, reporter, translator. Um, and the fact that we're there because it's passion, it's will, it's a real desire to make things happen, and not just for us. If we look at the grand scheme of things of what it takes for a fighter to make it in the world of boxing per se, a lot of stuff. It's not just work, it's not just training. There's a lot of, you have to have the right people, the right corner, the right manager, have the right relationships. It's difficult to really make it to a spot where you don't need to do another thing in order to just, pay your bills, for God's sakes. And boxing is a very jealous girlfriend. When you're boxing, I mean, 90% of the time you're doing 3 days. So when do you work? How do you sustain a family? How do you live a life? So let's go back. I am one to believe that the more opportunities you give fighters, then it's going to be a lot better for them, for their families, for their kids. And we're generating more clean environment, entertainment, because let's not forget, most of the fighters, they come from either meager means, troubled childhood. I mean, it's not like you're going to MIT and you decide to, nothing wrong if you're going to MIT and decide to go to boxing. I mean, if you do, thank you. I love you for that. But the truth of the matter is, boxing is just a means to an end, which is to make ends meet. So if you give them more opportunities, then everybody wins. Am I making any sense?
Yeah, no, I totally get where you're coming from for sure. It's just such a beautiful time in combat sports in general. It seems like there's so many opportunities out there. And I guess even kind of tying it back to just different fights we've seen happen in, Saudi Arabia and stuff like that recently. I'd be curious to get your thoughts on the upcoming Bivol Beterbiev rematch. And I guess just even, I guess maybe some thoughts on their first fight and whatnot.
My goodness, you know how to get to my heart. I mean, I love Bivol. I think that's when we talk about boxing purist, the way, I mean, I know I'm preaching to a choir, but the way he establishes his distance, how he's so consistent behind that jab, and those beautiful adjustments that he makes with, slight movements of his waist, beautiful. But Beterbiev is the boogeyman. He's the boogeyman, and he proved it. And he showed it to us. And he also showed us that age is just a number. And it doesn't matter how long you've been out, it doesn't matter how much of a break you've taken. The truth of the matter is, when you're a fighter, you're a fighter, you're a fighter, and that's it. And again, boxing is a very jealous girlfriend. And Beterbiev is the kind that understands this is not just a sport. This is not what I do, is who I am. So one of the things that I want to see in this next fight, I want to see Bivol, with his beautiful boxing skills, get himself out there, risk a little bit more. Just, he's got to. He's got to, because what he did in the first fight was beautiful. I mean, if we break it down, footwork was on point, jab was on point, beautiful combinations, but somebody was having a better day and was exposing himself a little bit more. And you know what? As a judge, I'm going to give that person the round. Ring generalship. Bivol can do it. He took care of business with a couple of very heavy hitters like Canelo. He took Canelo to school. So we know he could do it. So why is he going to hold back? Perhaps one of the biggest fights of his career. And I'm dying to see that.
Yeah, and I feel like we're on the same wavelength because I was gonna, ask about Canelo a bit because there's a lot of rumblings of him potentially fighting Terrence Crawford later this year. Like, what are your thoughts on that discourse and everything?
That would be a definite chess game. Uh, I have Terrence Crawford among my top five best pound per pound. He's, again, going back to a fighter that understands the sweet science to a T. I mean, I admire him 150%, but he's still a small guy. Canelo is a small 168, but he's used to being the small guy. So there's a lot of moving pieces to that fight happening. Can it happen? Yes. Do people want to watch it? Yes. But I'd like to see if they're going to have it in a 168. Are they going to have a catch weight? Now my question is, can Crawford be as efficient if he brings up his weight? Is Canelo going to be that efficient because he's not that young anymore? He's a little slower, but he still hits very hard. Ask Callum Smith, ask Bivol himself. Um, Ask John Ryder, just for for shits and giggles. Um, but I would love to see that matchup. I can see Bud being very strategical, and I can see Canelo risking a lot. Maybe he's gonna test Bud's power and see, at whatever weight they decide to make that fight, how hard or how fast is Bud Crawford gonna be? Um, there's a lot of factors that I'd like to see uh, if that fight really happens. It would be fantastic though. But it would be, in my book, humbly, I think it would be a very, very strategical fight. Very strategical, because I know any fighter would not risk um, just putting themselves as in a brawler position against Canelo. You don't brawl against a brawler. And Canelo is one of the best brawlers I know. And you don't box against a boxer. And Crawford is one of the best boxers I know. So, see what I'm saying?
Yeah, it is an intriguing matchup in many different regards, as you outlined there. And I feel like your connectivity to combat sports is such where I feel like I can tie you to so many fights that are coming up. Like, I mean, another fight this weekend, like you've spoken to David Benavidez in past interviews that I've seen, and he's fighting David Morrell this weekend and everything. So just, yeah, like, what are your thoughts on that particular fight there? That seems like one that's drumming up some conversation as well.
Okay, let's start with David Morrell. And for those out there that poo-poo Cuban fighters, I got news for you. Take a chill pill, take a step back, do a control alt reset, and delete anything you think you know about Cuban fighters, because David Morrell is not that. David Morrell is not Elis Dandy Lara, is not Guillermo Rigondeaux. No. Morrell is a big guy who loves to rumble. This man was raised in a completely different environment with a completely different exposure to boxing. And that's a big guy. And with that being said, I mean, Benavides is just big and he loves to duke it out. So what am I expecting? I don't think that fight is going to go the distance. I don't think so. I think this fight is going to end. And if it doesn't end before the final bell, the output percentage is going to be so high, because let's talk productivity. They're both extremely high for that division in the amount of punches that they throw, not necessarily land, but in terms of activity. Oh my goodness, I'm looking forward to that fight. And I'm going to be covering Clarissa Shields, which is another moment that we got to talk about.
Yeah, no, do tell. I'm curious to hear about that for sure. She's another exemplary fighter for sure.
Well, this is the opportunity for Clarissa to even write another chapter. I'm sorry, I'm fixing my earring. Clarissa making history now in the heavyweight division. Perkins has been around for a long time, experienced fighter. And if we know anything about Clarissa, is the fact I use the word relentless. And this is the way she actually takes on life, period. Um, and the her demeanor inside and outside the ring commands respect. So I want to see how Perkins handles that pressure when you know that you're facing somebody who's done what needs to get done to make history, not just for herself, but for women in the combat sports, period. But Olympics, professional, her own business, now her own documentary. I mean, talk about a full package. So I've always wondered, we don't talk about this often, how those lights can shrink somebody or affect, not shrink, but affect. So Clarissa's used to a level of attention. Clarissa is used to, being the center of attention and the scrutiny, because God knows once you get there, getting up there is half of the battle. Staying there is the other side of a very, very difficult battle. And Perkins is just in that sense, just starting. This would be one of the biggest fights she has. So I want to see how she handles that between press conference, weigh-ins, and all media, radio, interviews. That takes a toll. That takes a toll when you're in a place for a week and everybody's wanting and looking for a little bit of yourself. I want to see how she takes it. But that's going to be a great fight. And I'm excited just because um, being in this environment for as long as I have, I went through the highs of Layla Ali and Christy Martin and Mia St. John to having absolutely no women's boxing. And then all of a sudden, 2012 comes around. We're finally in the Olympics and we just exploded. So we're living this beautiful stage. We just talked about heavyweight division. Let's talk about women's boxing. We're finally not just saying, oh, she's a female fighter. No, we're referring to these ladies as fighters.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you tied that in because it really just shows just what a great landscape it is for combat sports. Like, just really such an incredible thing that Clarissa is striving towards there. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. And I guess just even the point of like how many opportunities that seem to be out there for fighters. 'Cause I've also seen some discourse that potentially Savannah Marshall and Clarissa Shields could have another fight, but in an MMA context with PFL. And it seems like BYB also affords different opportunities for their fighters and, gloved competition and things like that. So it just seems like a great time for, fighters to indulge independent contractor opportunities more than ever before, it seems like.
You know what's amazing when we look at our fighters, you know that there is no quit in them. Zero. Bare knuckle brings that, I want to call it the Hulk within us. And I mean, you've seen it. I don't need to expand on the concept, but the ladies are perhaps the most aggressive and relentless and no nonsense and no stopping them. It is incredible. And we've had trilogies and um when we're dealing with even ladies that come from the realm of boxing and they make that transition, it's like it's like a phoenix rising. Maybe they had a losing record in boxing, but once they walk into the bare knuckle, because it's such a small combat, it is the smallest combat area in all combat sports. It almost like allows them to blossom into even better fighters. And the fact that their productivity brings up the level of knockout wins comes up, and that excites people even more. And it's almost like a self-fulfilling cycle. The fans love it, the fighter lives that moment of adrenaline, therefore they give their all. You see what I'm saying? And women just I gotta tell you, this stays between us. When we have those exchanges with our fan base, and when we were just in Albuquerque and we go to Colorado, we go to Denver, and we're going to be in South Carolina pretty soon. My goodness, I am going to venture, perhaps the numbers are totally wrong. 60% of our fans are women, and they are just as loud and rowdy, and they love the fighters. And it doesn't matter if they're sweaty and bloody, they'll come, take their pictures, give hugs. It's amazing. We really enjoy, again, it allows for that oomph to come out.
It's kind of funny you say that. Like the last girlfriend that I had, like I couldn't, pay her to watch like MMA or boxing. It just didn't elicit that interest, but she really enjoyed bare knuckle. Like she would sit down and watch it with me and stuff like that. So yeah, there is something to it.
I don't, and I mean, again, it's not fair for me to say that I love bare knuckle. It's not fair, but I do. And I remember having a call. So I've been a friend of Mike Vasquez, the president of the company, for a long time. And we used to do NASCAR. And I was the pit reporter for NASCAR. And that's how we met many years ago. So here comes around, they start the bare knuckle. And he gives me a call in the middle of the pandemic out of the blue. And he says, well, I got this little project. We would like to invite you. Let me know. I said, sure, why not? It's pandemic, for God's sakes. I'm not doing much. So, of course, I take my daughter. It's a family trip. We go to the first event. Pati Juarez was actually fighting for a title that night. We were done, and I came up to him and I said, I know you're not asking me. Perhaps you don't have any space for me, but I want to be part of this. No questions asked. I didn't ask the money, contract. No, I was in love from the first punch to the last punch. It was, and I love it. And a lot of my fighter friends from boxing, they go, oh my God, how can you do that? That is so brutal. I go, because you haven't seen it in person. If you come and see it in person, you'll see. It's a completely different animal. If you see
And
bits and pieces, you don't get the full picture.
yeah, I mean, perfectly said. And I mean, that's a great shout out there. Patty Juarez is someone who I have a lot of respect for and have, appreciated instances of getting to interview her over the years and just what a great series of fights she had with Monica Medina. But speaking of
Oof.
another great series of fights coming up is the BYB Denver continuation of that Helen Peralta Leilani Mota series there for the vacant super featherweight Police Gazette belt. So just yeah, what an incredible rivalry there coming up that we'll see a follow up to. And then yeah, the Juarez Medina rivalry, some of the best bare knuckle fights I've ever seen.
My goodness, that was a massive trilogy. And to think, uh, Monica, I how do we explain Monica? Monica come forward with a little bit of background. She has a little bit of background in many different disciplines, but her main background is I am a mom, I'm a brawler, I'm just defending what's mine, and you came into my territory, I'm gonna just seek and destroy. And Patty, coming back from a very, very prestigious boxing family with very deep roots in boxing. All three sisters fight. The dad got him out of soccer to do boxing. So we know, and then they're Mexican, born and raised in the city of Mexico, Mexico City. That is perhaps one of the most deep and wide stables of boxing across the board in every single division, in men and women. So, I mean, what they eat, sleep, and breathe is boxing all day long. To have her face somebody who didn't have the same pedigree, that didn't have perhaps not even the same tradition of Mexican. You know, Mexicans, we have two very important sports. One is soccer, and the other one is boxing. Monica, being of Puerto Rican descent, understands it, but it's not quite the same. And let me tell you, that was explosive. And the level of respect that they have for each other. And it was an anthology. It was a poem written for bare knuckle. From the first bell to the last bell, you could see the brain, the combat sports IQ come into play. How, and again, going back to the Trigon, you can't really work on the ropes, and you could see it. You could see the adjustments second by second. And I could go on and on and on about that. They were amazing.
Yeah, and also shout out to Monica Medina in that same context that I gave to Patty. Just grateful that I've gotten to interview her over the years too, and excellent fighter, no doubt. But I guess just one last kind of question that I had for you, Claudia, because I asked fellow BYB commentator Mike Goldberg this when I noticed he had a cameo. I'm very intrigued by like strange, unorthodox cameo requests. Have you gotten any ones that were a little unusual or unorthodox, perhaps?
Oh, I think the one that I was called upon, which was fantastic. I was part of Creed. They cut my clip though, not fair, but it's okay. Then I did Bold and the Beautiful, and I did Revolution Boulevard, which was a long time ago. Always playing myself. It wasn't, but that's about it, I think. If I then again, I am part of documentaries. I'm part of the Stitch Duran documentary. So, but that's not really a cameo. That's more of a us talking about the need to structure and make sure that our men and women are respected, supported, endorsed. That's about it. I'm just I'm basic.
Oh, sorry. I guess I was more talking about like the page where like people can send in like specific requests for like happy birthday or whatever. Like Mike Gold.
Oh,
Yeah, sorry. I guess like the anecdote I had from Mike Goldberg because I was asking him if he got any weird requests, and apparently like someone at a funeral, like or like for someone's
oh my
funeral
God.
rather, they were like, "Oh, like you should say your it's all over phrase." And I thought that was a little macabre, but whatever. I mean, if it added to the proceedings, I guess. Have you ever had any unorthodox requests on
No,
Cameo in that
I
sense? Or
totally forgot I had a cameo page. Oh my goodness. As a matter of fact, I haven't looked at it. No, actually, people were very, no, it wasn't that bizarre, I don't think. But it was a request for a coworker to motivate them because apparently they were not having like the best of time at work. and they asked me to like show them any excitement or words of advice to, maintain the spirit and enthusiasm. But no, I didn't think that was so weird. No, I'm not Goldie. I'm very basic. Again, my appearances are very like, you know, clean cut, I guess.
Well, I do like that anecdote though. That is a wholesome thing to, put in a request for, and I really do appreciate you making the time, Claudia. So many great topics that you touched upon and gave such great insight into, but just wanting to be mindful of your schedule and what you're getting up to. Is there any final thought you wanted to add as we're kind of wrapping up here?
I want to thank you for giving us, this beautiful platform and, allowing us to talk about what we love best because we don't get a lot of chances to expose our opinions and thoughts and allow ourselves to just be people. Sometimes we're just, commentators. So I thank you for letting me just sit here and chat with you for a little bit.
Oh, well, it was great getting so many insights from you. I'm a fight nerd too, so good to, bounce off different ideas and thoughts. But thanks so much for coming on Bowks Talking Bouts today. You have a good rest of your day, and hopefully everything goes well with the proceedings in Cardiff and your involvement in all subsequent BYB and boxing events. Thank you for the time, Claudia.
Thank you.